welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie of the MHRT Network. Over that way is DZ, who is live from the back of the poolside cabana, representing his Los Angeles Chargers. Do not be surprised if some kind of fruity drink with some kind of umbrella floats in from stage left. I would not put that past him, but great to have him here on the show. And down below, we got Jack representing his Las Vegas Raiders. We got a great show for you tonight. It's going to be all about breakout players for this year. We just kind of covered the ramifications of the draft, the undrafted free agent players. Two of my favorite topics, actually, kind of meshing those two together. And then, of course, last week's show, we also had a kind of a rundown of the schedule and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's only fitting that we kind of get past and through all that and start talking about who we think are going to kind of pop on the roster this season for each of our respective teams. Jack, I'm going to throw to you first, but I do think just before we get into the topics for today's show, there is a swell within Broncos country that is now almost at odds with another group of Broncos country who is talking about the Raiders. Some of them are basically saying the Raiders are going to Raider and not do well and all that kind of stuff. But there's a very large swell, myself included, in Broncos country who is, and I never thought I'd ever say this aloud, but who's actually defending the Raiders and saying that they need that we need to treat them with a lot more respect in terms of what we should expect from you guys this year.
I think us fans see
that,
Richie, but I think other people are sleeping on the Raiders.
Yes.
Coming in the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Everyone can sleep on the Raiders. If they don't have any expectations on it, then hey, it's only good for us. So, it's kind of funny you said that because I was in Bakersfield. There was a summer kickoff event for Raider Nation. There was about 500 people there, so it was a pretty good crew. Couple ex-players, signing autographs like Jay Schrader and I forgot the wide receiver's name, like from 87 to 91. It was Williams or something like that. So if someone in the chat, if someone was there, I'm sure I got the wide receiver's name incorrectly. So if you can post in the chat, that would be cool. But, talking to everybody, it's funny, a lot of people are talking about your Broncos.
Yeah.
And I was, I was right on the same page. I think this might be the year that you guys might overtake, Kansas City. I'm not going to say you're there until you actually do it, but I had more conversations about your Broncos than I did, about KC. So
I'm seeing pundits picking the Broncos over like all three of our teams. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised and I'm not surprised at the same time because they made some really key additions, especially that defense. And let's be honest, that's what the defense kept the Chargers, got them into the playoffs, with the 27 scoring offense, but they had one of the best scoring defenses. So I could see the Broncos having a mesh of both, but, I don't know, man. All four of these teams look loaded, so it's really hard for me to pick. Number one.
Yeah, right. I still say the Raiders have the most to prove. I mean, you guys, 100%. We don't. You don't earn it until you earn it. You got to do it first. What's up, Cool Kev?
I feel stupid. I've been following this show for a few seasons now, and this is my first time, hosting with Coach D and Robert. But I feel like every year we go into the year disrespecting the Chiefs. Why? One of it because we probably don't like them, right? But it always comes to bite us in the butt, right? Like every year. They look like absolute dog crap last season, and they still somehow made it to the Super Bowl. So my whole hope and goal is that these three teams that are shown on the screen right now are so damn badass that they don't let whoever makes it out of this division is going to be, like weathered, ready to rock and roll. You know what I mean? Going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw some predictions. I think it was ESPN, and they still had Kansas City winning. I think they had 13 and 4. They had the Broncos 10-7. You said they had your Chargers 11-6, and they had the Raiders at 9-8. I'm like, wow.
11-6 is like my high end right now. That's like if everything works right. I think 11-6.
Wait, not 11-6. I'm sorry, 10-7. I take it back. I apologize.
Yeah, so 10-7 seems to be the consensus right now. But I mean, everybody's picking 10-7 with every team. I've seen Giants fans saying we're going to be 10-7. So it's just I think everybody's very cautiously.
Optimistic,
Yeah, right. Yeah, everybody's just being optimistic about their teams. We're fresh out of the draft, got the free agent signings. I mean, there's still some hopefully some summer signings coming, and I think Richie's team might be getting a familiar face, maybe coming in summer. Mr. Von Miller might potentially reunite in Denver, which I think would be dangerously
horrible.
Good.
He's been tied to the Chargers too.
Well, that story though, Richie, is a complete BS made up story, and then it was a bunch of accounts that just said Von Miller is rumored. If I went down and I tracked it after I was 17 beers deep the other day, and it was all just bullshit speculation. So I was like, yeah, that's not happening. So why would he not return and just, with the Broncos where he started?
That makes too much sense.
Yeah, with that vaunted defense is looking like it's going to come out in 2025.
I mean, going home, you got to figure he's towards the end of his career. Why not finish where you started?
I think he got like 6.5 sacks last season with the Bills.
I think you're right.
Something like that. I mean, respectable. I mean, he's no spring chicken, but I mean, definitely helps.
Still, I mean, 6.5 sacks. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not the young Von Miller, but still 6.5 sacks isn't too bad if he's not your number one defensive end.
Not at all, man. I could see him situational type of guy.
Well,
right?
he's an outside linebacker. He's never been a DN.
Right.
Or linebacker.
So he's 6'3", 248,
He's always been on the lighter side, right, Richie?
Yeah. He's always been. Von Miller's thing was, especially when he was younger, and this is before his major. He could bend. He could go at full speed while bent almost 90 degrees. Like, it was insane.
To be honest with you, he's the best I've ever seen bending around a tackle, man. Like ever in my life. Like it was scary when at his peak. I hated the Broncos. Like just the crap he would do. Phillip Rivers stood no chance with Von Miller. Poor Rivers.
No one did with any squad.
All these engines have different.
Rivers and Vaughn actually have had multiple conversations about each other, and there is definitely a mutual respect that Von Miller had for Phillip Rivers, like a very deep-rooted mutual respect, based on how they just. Rivers was never the complainer. He was never the guy who was like, "Oh, I can't believe." He was always like, "Dude, that guy's good. Like that guy's real good."
P-Riv is my boy, and when he did complain, it was a little weird. But I love Phillip Rivers, man. I love him. Hey, look, his son might look like the real deal coming out in a few years as a QB. So let's hope that's the case. What's it say, Rich? You still don't know?
What's up, Furpo?
Oh.
Hey, James, are you on break? James is like the hardest working man I've ever met, but he's always like popping in the channels like on his break just to say hello, everybody, and go back to work.
Yeah, there's quite a few Raiders fans that have been trying to convert me.
Yeah, man.
No, the answer is no.
No, the answer is always going to be no. I'm like old school messing with this new school Charger fans. I still have my roots in San Diego when we hated everybody, and it was always FTR, family, trust, respect with the Raiders, and it was anti everything. There was no jersey swaps. There was no like, hey, bro, let's be cool. But look, it's off season. We're all cool with each other, respectable. We like to talk ball, but the season's around the corner, and we can start getting more chippy with each other.
Nice. Enjoy your days off, James.
So Jack, I think might be a good idea to start with the Raiders, since we got a bunch of Raiders fans that have joined the show and are in the chat. Let's go ahead and maybe jump in there and start talking about your squad. And we'll go 1, 2, 3 for each of our respective teams, and kind of get your players. But let's have a brief discussion on each of them that you bring forward, just because I think we're going to start probably bringing up some familiar faces that might come up. And I think we're also going to be talking about guys that are maybe deeper on the roster that some of our other fans from other teams may not recognize. So over to you, Jack, and let's hear who you got as breakout players.
Yeah, you got, so it was kind of tough, thinking it like, man, there's 3, but there's really, I think there's going to be potentially more. And I'm not going to get everyone knows who this player is. I don't know if you're going to call it a breakout, but I feel like it's almost expected, with Aston Genty. I mean, I just think of last year, like with Brock Bowers coming out, and you kind of expected him to do good, but no way in the world did I ever think, Bowers is going to do what Bowers did last year and just be phenomenal. So I have a high expectation on Aston, just based on, his college career. But I think, coming year 1 into the league, I think he's really going to put on a show. And I think he's just going to be a dynamic player. It's, all facets of the game. So that was like a, low-hanging fruit right there. And then I got a couple more that I like. I really like, and again, this goes at UDFA. So when we were talking UDFAs last week, I really feel like this kid's got a shot, not only, make the roster, but to actually be a starter day 1. And I'm looking for him to, he's my kind of breakout player, is going to be Amari Gainer. He's a, off-ball linebacker. He's like, 6'3", 236. I mean, and he was phenomenal, in the preseason last year. He didn't get a lot of opportunities because, Diablo was the starter. But when, Diablo would go down, then he would get some rotation, on and play some football. And I like what he showed. So I really feel, because they really haven't done much. I mean, they did sign, Michael Barrett. He was a 7th-round draft pick a couple years ago today, from the Panthers. Hasn't played a single snap. He's been on 4 teams already. He's only been in the league like 2 years. So I don't see him, pushing for any type of competition. But and I look at the Raiders roster, and it's full of middle linebackers, guys that can stop the run, but are not good against the pass, where Amari is really the only true coverage linebacker that I really see on the roster. So I think his opportunity is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And I can't wait to actually get these games going to watch him. I've watched them all preseason last year, and it's just a guy that I thought was pretty unique and special, and I hope he continues to do so. And then
do you think your team might move an outside backer if you have extra on the roster, perhaps as an inside backer?
Let's say that again. I couldn't hear you, Richie.
Do you think you guys? So you basically said, "Hey, look, we got a bunch of run stuffers, and that's great, right?" Because frankly, I think you got the Chargers that have got a great running back room, probably one of the more dangerous ones in the entire division, if we're going to be honest.
We'll see.
Then we got the Chiefs, who have a pretty dangerous running back room as well. Like they're pretty solid on that front as well. My Broncos are about middle of the pack until proven otherwise, in my opinion. Like
that's how I feel. What you just said is until proven otherwise. That's how I feel right now. But go ahead.
But I think you have proven entities on your team, and this is like, for example, you have Najee Harris, who's a proven entity. It's not like he's a guy that is a known commodity in the NFL. He is going to get you yards. He's going to do certain things. He's going to, get the job done.
That's one of my spoilers. You're using some ammo right now, but I get what you're saying.
But without going too much into it, my point is that you got other dudes on your roster who are,
right.
Let's wait and see. Like Hampton, for example, he's
Sure.
like kind of a wait and see. But you have other guys that I think are going to be like we know who they are. We know what they're capable of. Like this is not guesswork on our part. We kind of know what you got, and so I think you have a very dangerous running back room in that regard. And then obviously we got this guy down here who got a generational running back at that position, right? So
looking genty. Jesus.
It's one of those things where I think that having those inside backers are a good thing because you want that depth to help bolster your run defense. But I do wonder, Jack, and where I was going with that was if you don't have any coverage guys, one way of getting into a coverage guy is converting an outside backer, lighter, faster, more nimble, if you will, and converting them into an inside backer. So I look at what the Broncos did with a guy like Baron Browning, who they converted the outside backer for a middle linebacker. And frankly, I still think that Baron Browning did better as an inside backer than an outside backer on the Denver Broncos. And I'm wondering if you might do something similar. Just out of curiosity.
I would like to see something like that. It ain't going to happen this year, just based on the players that they have on the roster currently. It's just that everyone, White, he's never been a good coverage linebacker, even when he was being all pro. And then the linebacker they got from Pittsburgh, I mean, he basically got pulled because again, they got I forgot the linebacker's name, but they got the linebacker from Baltimore, was it? And who's good at both. So his playing time got dramatically reduced because he couldn't cover. So that's kind of the problem with this team. Even a rookie or a guy we drafted last year in Eichenberg from Ohio State, he's also one of those guys. He's a run stuffer, but doesn't offer a whole lot in pass coverage.
A true middle linebacker, Liam. He's going to be your old school lunch pail linebacker kind of type.
So I'm hoping after cuts come out, hopefully they can pick up another guy, get some depth on there. Hey Bishop, what's up? Ready to drop?
I'm curious to see who's still out there, like free agent wise, linebacker or anything. I think that's something we should touch on in the future. Just see what names are still kind of floating out there. Because I got a feeling some of the guys they brought in, this new regime in the LA brought in, they signed some late summer guys. So I've got to think they're going to bring in some more, especially Jack. Your team.
Think of June 1st. Once June 1st hits, then we'll start seeing some movement again, and check out who's going to be out there. So it's not that far around the corner.
Right.
Well, the unsung area as well, and then we'll get back right to what you were going at, Jack. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought it was a valid point, right? Where a lot of teams do convert dudes, right? So, but another thing that gets lost is the back end of the roster. So the last, say the bottom five guys, the last five guys, on the depth chart, the ones that are kind of on the bubble. And the reason why that's so important is if a guy gets cut from another team and you're like, no, that guy, those bottom five guys on your roster are always at risk at any given moment from being cut and replaced. And I think that's where it gets really interesting, which is...
Hey, breaking news. Did you guys see this? Jim Irsay just passed away.
Whoa.
Yeah, Colts owner. Wow. You know what? I don't want to sound like a dick because but this might be a good thing for the Colts. But Colts fans have been complaining about him for a while. Look, that sucks to say that, but he passed away. He was a big name in the ownership group. So rest in peace to the Irsay family. I just saw that
Wow.
pop up on my feed. Sorry, guys, just interrupting with that.
No, that's breaking news right there. And you
Wow.
heard it first on the Wild Wild West show.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, posted on the official Indianapolis Colts X account as well. Yeah.
Damn. Look,
Wow.
I know a few Colts fans, and they've been kind of like
Wow.
talking about him, but I don't think anybody wishes death on anybody. But it's sad.
Yeah, that is truly sad. Yeah.
So
Let
this
me.
is
When
the-
that
this is the
it kind of totally
official,
changed my mind or my thought.
I'm sorry, Jack. I apologize, man.
No,
It kind of
this
reminds
is the,
me
this is the
because
official post from the Colts.
yeah, dude, I think this was unexpected, you guys.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me because like Alex Spanos was kind of a beloved owner with the Chargers, and then I know that obviously Davis Sr. was beloved by Raiders, Al. So, we'll see. Actually, where's the? Actually, no, just sure Ben's live. All of you are like 10 minutes late. Oh, sorry, Anthony.
Yeah, we'll work on the direct line from the Colts organization next go around. But Jack, back over to you and talking about the last guy. So you got you were talking about linebackers, and then
yeah.
you kind of
Oh, Anthony, what did you want me to? What you want me to bring up, bro? No, well, again, we were talking, off-ball linebacker, and like based on what the roster is, and that's why I think Amari Gainer could have a breakout season, because he's really right now the one guy that's playing that position. So I can totally see that. And then like the lat, well, it's kind of a tie. I gotta toss up on this next one. So and another breakout player, I think he could be really good because he reminds me so much of Jacoby Myers, is Jack Besh. I just think that the kid brings so much, and he's got that chip on his shoulder, and and he's got Tiger on his mind. It's like, hey, you didn't just sign one guy, you signed me and Tiger. Living after that, his brother, getting run over in New Orleans. He just has that different type of mentality, and he just does everything exactly the same way as Jacoby Myers. It'll be interesting to see how many touches he actually gets, because when you got a Brock Bowers and then you got a Jacoby Myers, and that kind of brings up the other guy, which is kind of why I'm split, because the other guy, I just feel like in the way of Thornton was another one of our wide receivers that we drafted. And this kid has just got all the potential. I mean, this is like Al Davis's pick. Al Davis is up there in heaven, smiling down. I mean, Thornton is from Tennessee. He's 6'5", 208 pounds, and runs a 4.30 flat 40. So you put that type of potential on the field, where you got guys that are not as fast, and like Brock Bowers, not as fast, and Jacoby Myers or a Jack Besh. But then you mix in that type of, he's the tallest one, he's the fastest one. So I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities to really kind of stretch that field. Because if you get him on the field, well, what does that do for your running game? You're not going to be able to stack the box
Helps
as much,
you, man.
So which is going to open up holes for Genty. So
Story of my
even
life last season, Jack. Stack boxes. There's only one guy they had to cover in LA, and that was Ladd. And
Mhm.
especially, look, everybody else just stacked the boxes. They didn't respect any of their wide receivers. They're all scrubs last season, man. And look, I'll get some hate for saying that, but they were. But I'll tell you what, Jack, you said a guy, and Jacoby Myers, to me, he's one of the most underrated receivers in the whole league.
I agree. I think he is underrated. I mean, when they signed him, I mean, wow, that was a pretty good deal. It was like 4 years, 40. And I'm like, he's overplayed his contract. So this is his last year. So I'm expecting the Raiders to actually come out and give him an extension, at least enough to match, Pete Carroll's time there.
I hope that, as a Charger fan, I hope they don't re-sign him, but you guys definitely keep him around, man.
Oh, we got to keep him around.
He's a quarterback.
Right now he's our number one wide receiver. So, they better do something for him.
Yeah, man.
But, when they did draft Besh, and it's like, you look at it, it's like, well, he is Besh. Besh is Jacoby Myers, pretty much. So it's like, okay, well, if maybe that was like insurance. Who knows? But there hasn't been any conversation or like anything that's been really kind of put out there about contract extensions. I know Colton Miller sat out voluntary camp because, he has no guaranteed money on his deal. And he's only getting paid. Picture this. Colton Miller is only getting paid like $12 million this year. Left tackle. He's been the stalwart of our offensive line for like a decade.
Yeah, but could that be because of who you guys brought in, man? Like you guys have DJ Glaze and you guys brought in that guy from William and Mary.
Well, the Grant from William and Mary, he's interesting, but he's from a small school. And, I wouldn't want to just throw Grant out there. But, again, if it all depends on the contract, how big of contract are we talking here? But, what was kind of interesting, I just saw this before we hopped on. They were, they had practice. And in the way of the offensive line, there was no rotation except for one spot. So Colton Miller at the left tackle. I'm going to skip the left guard because that's where the rotation is. And of course, JPJ, Kappa they got from the Bengals at the right guard, Glaze at your right tackle.
Yeah.
And it was a split between Parham and Meredith at the left guard.
So Parham's a tackle though, actually, right?
No, Parham's a guard.
Oh, so he played guard last year?
Yeah. So when we drafted him, he started off as our left guard. Then when James got hurt, he moved over to center and played there for a little while. And then when James came back, he went back to left guard. And then
That's before JPJ, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was before JPJ.
Because JPJ took over for Andre James when he got hurt again against KC or prior to KC.
Yeah, once Andre James, got hurt and JPJ went in there, I mean, you can notice the difference in the quality of the player. So that's where he just never kind of left. He just kind of stayed. And that's what made James expendable this year is because, well, you got JPJ.
Got some dudes cover him.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle for that spot there, with Parham and Meredith. I didn't quite think, that they were going to do that. I didn't know Kappa was just going to, automatically go in there and say, okay, you're pretty much, at least, anything can change. It's so early, but to not rotate at all and then just rotating Parham on the left side, I was a little surprised by that.
Did you see that clip? It was JPJ with Max Crosby.
Yeah, the rush.
Yeah, and how he was like talking. He told AP like, "You're putting me in. I'm playing center." I forgot what the award is called in college, where it's like a center award. Anybody fill in if you guys know what it was. But what he said, I was like, I posted it in a Chargers chat, and I'm like, I am so effing pissed that we didn't draft this guy because he is the epitome of being a badass, like just a mauler as a center. He wants to take over. He wants to hip toss dudes. Like I'm pretty upset he's in silver and black, but seems like a really good kid. Coming from Oregon.
Absolutely. And he's got that mentality, and he's funny as hell, too.
Yeah, he seems like he's got a little bit of, yeah.
His Halloween costume was Chris Farley. I'm like, dude, that's perfect. I'm like, that's straight up perfect. And then he also did this little clip. They were doing like an Allegiant tour. I don't know if I sent you guys that picture. He's got like a wig on and a big old mustache, and, he's doing a tour like with a bunch of, Raider fans and Allegiant. And they had no clue who he was, until the very end. and he kind of undisguised himself. So he's got a lot of character in him too.
Yeah.
Oh, that was another thing. Thank you for bringing up JPJ. So at the Bakersfield event, I didn't meet him, but JPJ's parents were actually there.
Really?
So shout out to JPJ's parents.
So he's from California?
Yeah. He said his first game he ever went to. He grew up in the Bay Area.
Okay.
First game he ever went to was a Raider game.
Oh, so it's like a marriage. It was meant to be.
I hope so. I thought that marriage would have been with Devontae Adams too, but look at how that worked out.
Yeah.
So when we look at where you guys are at with your line, it sounds like you're happy with Glaze, but I do wonder if he's in a very much a prove it season where he's got to show that he can kind of do the thing for the rest of the year. The one thing that you end up with left tackles, and this is kind of going back to your Colton Miller comment there, is there is a very, very big gap in terms of statistics, in terms of left tackles. Those that are taken within the top 10 of the NFL draft are typically the starters in the league, and it's not even close. Anyone taken outside of the top 10, they have something like a 70 or 80% failure rate. Like it's huge. Like it's
Glaze
not
was
even,
pretty decent though last year, wasn't he?
No, but he's a right tackle. He's a right tackle.
Yeah.
Right tackles have their stats are a little bit different.
Right.
They are still, generally speaking, in the top 10 to 20. You can get a really solid left tackle, and they tend to do well at the NFL. But the left tackle position, just generally speaking, it's basically a top 20 pick or a top 15 pick even. And anything outside of that, you're typically not getting a true starting caliber guy.
It's kind of crazy, Richie. You know, there's 32 teams, right? And usually every team, rosters a left tackle or 2 or 3, right? You got some swing tackles. And there's really only like 10 that are good, right? At any given time, right? So it's like there's really only 10 like dudes that are like not even locked down, but just say good, right? Like where you're not worried about your quarterback getting sacked every other play, right?
Yeah.
And it just shows like how extremely valuable that position is. And it's, I mean, you got to put these guys on an island, right? Like, and if you can't, then you're always bumping a tight end out there. And then that gives away to defensive coordinators most of the time what you're doing over on that side. So, it's not a sexy position, but it's a extremely, if not one of the most valuable positions, right? Like to say.
Well, it is. It's like you got your quarterback, right? Then you got to have your left tackle to protect the blind side. And then you got your defensive end to go and get the quarterback. I mean, those are 3 premium positions, that are out there that they're like the cornerstones. I mean, you can get which is kind of crazy. And we talked about this on shows a long time ago. The wide receivers, that are out there. I mean, you look at what they're getting paid. I mean, they're getting paid big bucks. But you can survive with good receivers. But, you're definitely probably not going to survive with just an average left tackle to protect your, $50 million, quarterback that you're paying.
And do you know what you can do to prove it this year? Look at what happens with the Bengals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The who?
The Bengals.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Trey Henderson is like, he's still sitting out there. Where's it coming?
God, I wish my team would scoop him up. I would kill to have him on my team right now.
No, because when you look at what the Bengals are doing, the Bengals have
see what they did.
Yeah.
Stupid, in my opinion.
Like, they paid these 2 wideouts like insane contract dollars, right? Insane contract dollars. And they have their quarterback making, upper tier
50
money.
million.
No,
and Richie, what
upper tier
gets
money.
me is they're still picking these guys to like win their division, get to the Super Bowl. I'm like, really? 2 receivers and a quarterback, no effing defense, right? And these guys are making the Super Bowl every year. I'm like, no, man. I don't get it with them. Like, they score a ton of points, but
Well, what puts fans at butts in the seats?
bingo,
Points.
right? Yes.
Well,
I'm just like, this isn't fantasy football, man. Like, come on.
but the fantasy points and stuff are going to be high because they have a quarterback who can throw the ball well. He's accurate,
Yeah,
and they
he's
have
a
two
good
good wide
quarterback.
ends, right? But the problem is that without a defense, you're basically always having to play kind
From
of
behind,
pants
catch
on
up.
fire, like pants on fire. So, 30, 40-yard bombs down the field to try to catch up in games or stay ahead in games. Like, it's basically like the old school Mahomes ball, right? Where they were playing with Tyreek Hill, where Mahomes would go and drop like a 30-yard bomb down the field to Tyreek. I mean, it works great when it works, but the problem is you run the risk of whether it be an interception or a failed throw or any of those sorts of things. And you can bomb a game by missing 2 or 3 of those and then having the other team come back down, chew the clock, and then put you way behind the 8 ball because your whole game plan is bombs away, I hope I win.
Real quick, we were talking about left tackles like just a second ago before the Bengals, and there was an embarrassing story like 2 seasons ago. I think the Chargers played the Detroit Lions, and Penei Sewell was either playing right or left tackle. I can't remember which it was. And this is embarrassing because this was going against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, and Penei Sewell didn't allow anything. Nobody touched Goff. And after the game, there's like footage of him saying, little boys. And we know, everybody in this division knows Khalil Mack. Jack knows who Khalil Mack was. This guy stonewalled them. And I was just like, I was pissed. I was embarrassed as a fan, but I was also gained a whole new respect for this guy. Like, he is a badass. Like, throw the Brinks truck up to his house because he deserves every penny for what he just did.
Well, you got to look at your own squad. I mean, shoot, you got probably the 2 best tackles in the entire NFL. And, that even like what was it? We started off against you guys last year, Max Crosby, going against my Notre Dame boy.
He got some good pressures on him. I mean, look, he was a rookie.
He was 11-0. He stonewalled Max. So, I mean, you look at that, it's like, when you were talking, last year, it's like, the sexy pick, Malik Neighbors, turns out to be, he's a great wide receiver.
Yeah.
Even
really
when he doesn't have great quarterback play. But Joe Alt is absolutely fabulous. That kind of goes back to my point. If you got good tackles on your squad, you can get away with not having the best wide receivers. But, man, it doesn't matter. If the line doesn't hold up, I don't care who. If you could have Joe Burrow, you can have, Jamar Chase and Jeffries and so forth. But if you're letting people get to the quarterback, then what does it matter? It doesn't even matter.
You kind of summed up our season in a way. Like, right? Like, you have these great tackles. You can get away with stuff. And that's kind of what happened. And then they went against a rejuvenated, healthy team at home. They got all their guys at the right time. And, yeah, it didn't fly, man. Like, there's only so much your tackles can do because you've got 3 other guys and you need guys to catch the ball, right? But you're right, Jack. Like, you can get away with some stuff. I agree.
But that's what blows me away with the wide receivers. It's just, again, it's all about, the owners. Hey, we want to make money, right? So we got a flashy offense, and, that's what's going to bring fans into the stadium. It's going to sell some merch.
That's any of our team's DNA, though. Right now, I haven't seen the Broncos pay a receiver in a while a ton of money.
I don't think it's going to happen. My hot take is that I don't think we bring back Sutton.
Ooh, wow.
I've been on other shows and said it as well.
No, and I'm glad you said that because I know we're not supposed to talk about other teams that have like a breakout player, But I think the Broncos could potentially have 2, and that has to correlate with what you just said. That's kind of interesting you said that. But yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah, my take on my team is, as much as I like Cortland, I think he's a great player. I've always said that I think that he is basically an elite number 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like T. Higgins, in my opinion. He's a
right,
T,
exactly. I think that's a great analogy. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, he can get around guys. He can get open. He can catch balls. He can be the red zone threat. He can do all those things. Zero knock on him is like, that's not even meant as an insult when I'm talking about in that regard with regards to Cortland. It's just he doesn't have. Yeah, he's not from this coaching tree regime, whatever. He's shown that he can do some gritty things. He's shown that he's willing to do some of that dirty work. But the question is can he stay healthy enough, long enough to do the things at a high level? And can other guys step in while being paid less and still match or even beat the production? So, for example, if you look at, say, Troy Franklin as an example, he was able to get deep on a bunch of teams and then basically drop the whole whack of balls last season. Otherwise, he would have had one heck of a rookie season with Bo Nix as his quarterback even last year.
Troy's got the Jets, man.
And he's got the Jets. He can do the things, right? And then you got Marvin Mims, who started to kind of fill in as that gadget kind of style player, that kind of wide receiver, do-it-all kind of dude on the team as well. And so then the question then becomes is like, okay, well, Cortland's a really good player, but is it worth paying him, 23, 24, 25 mil a year?
Well, if something doesn't happen this year with A and B, who I'm thinking of, I think you have to bring him back.
I agree. I agree, and that's why I think that they're gonna maybe bring him on like a high incentive contract this year to see if he's gonna like push himself to do the thing. But part of me is thinking that they're probably not going to try to really push to bring him back, because we got a deep wide receiver room, including some of the UDFAs that, I could see some guys kind of bumping him, like Vele as an example. That dude had one heck of a rookie season as a 7th round draft pick. Let's get a 7th rounder.
You have another guy on there. Mm-hmm. You have another guy. You got Vele, and I'm trying to remember this other guy's name, and I think both those guys have a potential to be breakout studs.
Yeah, we got Vele, Pat Bryant. We got Marvin Mims. We got Bryant, who was a draft pick this year. He's my number 3 on my list, by the way.
That was my guy that I was going to say to you. I think. But again, the point is, we also have the UDFA that I brought forward, the guy from the small school 2 weeks ago that I brought forward, who runs like a 4.3 40 and had a 3-cone drill that was in like the upper tier of the NFL draft. The only difference is he came from, a small school. Like that's literally his only knock, right? And so the whole point here is I think the Broncos have, a whole bunch of guys that are really starting to kind of log jam up into the potential of the wide receiver room. And I think it'll start to make people second guess whether or not you really should be bringing back a high paid wide receiver when you have such a large cohort of guys that can probably do the job at a much cheaper rate for you.
Is he on the last year of his contract right now?
Yeah. I sometimes, you kind of brought up a point, and I know we keep going off tangents, but that's partially my fault. But
no, that's part of the show. That's what we do.
Well, look,
right?
I've been drinking since the sun came up. But anyways, different story. It's all about what these guys have up here, right? Like, so they bring in. That's why these teams bring in tons of players, and with all these elite traits. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean shit unless they have it up here. right? Unless they can put it together, because we've seen so many elite athletes, especially in the NFL, fail because they can't understand. They're in the wrong assignments. And you know,
Hey, do you want to know one that you could put in that category?
Who's that?
Jadeveon Clowney.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
That is so true.
The dude's like 6'5", 280 pounds, and ran something like a 4.45 40 or something.
There's
stupid.
kind of a caveat
to
that, but go ahead.
And you look at like Clowney, it's like, plus the highlight, stuff when he's coming out of college, when they're playing Michigan
South Carolina,
and he just blew up the center and just crushed the running back on that play.
Probably the best college highlight ever, by the way, Jack. Probably like the best. Like if you did that today, they'd be like, all right, we're calling the cops, we're getting lawyers involved. He murdered somebody in that backfield. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But to be fair, when he was with the Ravens, he's a really good run defender. I'll give him that. But yeah, I get what Richie was trying to say.
No, but the point is, someone who is that elite of an athlete, and make no mistake, he was an elite level athlete. Mm-hmm. Like that's not even up for debate. The dude was a freak.
Sure.
But the problem is that he's a great example of someone who I don't believe had it up here. He didn't have that killer instinct that's required to be the best of the best.
I totally agree.
But hold on, but Jack, and let me just top that off, and I'll throw over to you. But and then here's an example of the flip side of that. Von Miller. Von Miller had a whole bunch of an elite level athletic traits coming out of college. I mean, the dude was vaunted, like he was like, touted from from the rooftop.
I think that dude grew up chasing chickens, man.
Yeah, right. He did, but
chasing chickens.
No, but the thing with Von Miller, though, right, is
he loves ball.
He had all of the same type of like elite level athletic kind of traits for his position. Obviously, different positions, DN versus outside linebacker. But the point is, they were both basically pass rushers. They were both athletic freaks, and you could kind of pair off a bunch of interesting traits. One of them had the mental mindset of I want to be the best, and then the other one seemed to just say, "Well, I'm really good, so do I really need to try?" And that's the mental math.
I can see that early in Clowney's career. What you're talking about, sure, yeah.
That's absolutely fact.
But that's the make or break of a player. Like that is literally the make or break.
Yeah, if you want that big next contract, I mean, look, I get it. I 100% agree. I still think he's a very serviceable player in the league. Like he is definitely a good rotational piece, a second end, or because he does have in the right system a good run defending. He can set the edge, but sack wise, not so much anymore.
Well, it's kind of like Chase too. I mean, Chase is kind of that same type of player where, hey, I'm this good. I don't have to work at it very hard, but look at you now. I mean, no one ever talks about him. But I look at like Khalil Mack even. He's got the mindset for it. Max Crosby. He doesn't have the athletic ability of those boys, but he's got that mental mindset, for it.
Max got the motor and the heart and the mentals. He's got that, but he doesn't have the elite traits as like those guys.
Correct. He doesn't have that elite athleticism. And, I look at it kind of and Richie, for you bringing that up, it just made me think of something, during the draft or after the draft. I look at pretty much every player that the Raiders took. They all wore the C on their chest. These are the players that, said, like a lot of players go, I'm going to skip the Senior Bowl or whatever, their bowl game because they don't want to get hurt their draft stock. And they're going after players that said, no, I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to play in the game that I don't really have to play in. And I'm going to risk myself because I just love ball.
I think these younger generations are going to find out what these GMs are actually looking for. And it's like, are you chasing the bag or are you trying to play? And, look, I don't think all GMs are looking for that blue collar guy that you're kind of going towards, Jack, or even Richie. But I think they're seeing some. And I know for a fact, Chargers GM is kind of along that side, like, hey, you went out and played, you still did this while you were projected to go here, or you did this while you were injured. Like, you just gained a whole new level of respect in our organization. This is the type of guy we're looking for. We're looking for a guy who wants to win, who wants to, ball out, who wants to win, not chase the bag. And that's evident in LA right now. They're not going after people who want to chase the bag, because they could have gone out this year and got, big time names, and they didn't. There's nobody sexy on the team right now in free agency.
No, the only person that I was upset that you guys got, so it's great for you guys, sucks for me and Richie, is, you got Beckham. I thought that was a wonderful pickup. And, big monster of a man. It's like, and, I think the whole thing, the Jets just used him wrong, putting him at right tackle.
Yeah,
I just don't think they used him right. But when he went to Philly, okay, yes, Philly, an amazing offensive coordinator. Yes, they do everything so well, but when you watch the Philly games, you see Beckham, and it's like, wow, totally different player, night and day.
I'm happy about him. I still just have I'm optimistically cautious about him because of the health stuff. But yeah.
So staying on the topic, so it makes you kind of wonder about Sanders, right? That commitment, you're about the name on the back more than, your shield on the front.
When you said Sanders, I'm like, my wheels are turning. A little smoke was coming out. I'm like, oh, that's Sanders. Yes, the guy I'm sick and tired of hearing about, by the way, Jack, but go ahead.
No, it's just that, again, it's just we're talking about players that, want the bag, that they think they're so good, maybe you don't have to work as hard. And I just wonder, his last name carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But, it could be a negative weight for the NFL. But at the same time, it's like, I kind of got that vibe, I got the vibe, that's part of the reason why he dropped.
Or how about the fact that his family pretty much said to the Browns, don't draft us. Don't draft me.
And where does he go?
He says that's where quarterbacks go to die. They told the Browns, don't draft him. Don't draft us. So that's why, look, it sucks because maybe he's going to be great. But, as fans, right, and we kind of lean to our old school values of ball, right? And it's kind of sucks for us because I think we find it's hard for us to respect that player, right? Which he doesn't care, right? But he's getting his money. But it's the same. It's just.
I think it's more than that, actually. So he is a player that I would rather not talk about. But at the same time, I think it's more than that. And the reason why I think it's more than that is because John Elway refused to go to the team that drafted him in the first round.
Oh.
Peyton Manning didn't want to go to the team that originally drafted him in the first round.
Eli Manning
kind of Eli Manning did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Where he said no to the Chargers and he went to the Giants instead, right? And so
that worked out really good, actually.
It works out for him and for the Chargers a little bit, but the point here, but the point here though is that we don't look back at those guys and paint them effectively in the same light. And I think the reason why we don't do that is because I believe Shedeur in particular came into the draft thinking that he was bigger and better than he actually was.
Right.
And I believe that he came in saying, basically, he treated himself as a fig jam. And
I just don't think the owners like that diva mentality.
No, but
when you haven't even played a snap yet.
No, but they don't. But so Fig Jam stands for I'm good, just ask me, and you can figure out what the F actually stands for, right? And so the point here is that he's got his dad who's basically saying my son is better and he's going to do all the things and all that kind of stuff. You also have the risk of dad who is an aspiring NFL head coach who is going to be lingering in the background, who it's like, well, if my son doesn't start playing well, I mean, I could probably step in and make him play well, right? Because so daddy's always lingering in the background for those teams. And I think that's a bit of a turnoff for a lot of these GMs and owners and stuff as well. And then there's also the attitude adjustment that the kid's coming in unprepared. I don't really want to be here because I think I'm better than your team. I think I'm bigger. Like, I think my name, my family gravitas is bigger and better than your team and your team name. And I think that's an absolute trash approach to things. And I think as good as guys like John Elway, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, and some of these other guys have been in years past, who basically said, I'm not going to the team that drafted me. Fair enough. But none of them came out publicly and were being like, I'm bigger and better than the sport. It was just, I don't want to play for that team, and I will not play if I'm not traded. Now,
well,
that's an issue in and of itself.
One part of that, though, Richie, is that, just because it's a totally different era. You look at like social media. I mean, look what we're doing right now. I mean, everyone's got a cell phone.
Yeah.
Anyone can talk to anyone. Back in those days, you're reading newspapers to get your news.
Correct.
So it is totally different. And kind of a fun fact. So the Raiders and Broncos had a trade in place for Elway. Do you remember what it was? The NFL blocked it. Yes, they did. It was Howie Long and a second-round pick for Elway, and the NFL blocked it. I mean, how does the NFL block it? How can the NFL? Again, total different generation, different era. How does the NFL step in and say, nope, we're not going to let this trade happen if both teams are wanting to do the trade?
When was that, though? I can't remember.
After he signed with Denver. I don't know when it was, but I just know it was Howie Long. So Howie was in there in the same era as in the 80s.
Right. I was just trying to figure out. So the Broncos traded for Elway. Right. They brought him in. They traded.
No, I get that, and I know that. It's just I just remember.
Trying to figure out when that was.
I'll have to look it up after the show.
Yeah. But I do know that. I have actually heard that there was a trade in place at one point, and that the NFL kind of, said no. So Jack, just to kind of put a bow on your Raiders, kind of three guys there. The one thing I will say about Thornton, the wideout that you were talking about, the kind of Al Davis, smiling from on up above kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's an interesting guy. He reminds me a little bit of like a big version of Tyreek Hill, where he's got straight line speed coming out of college. And then now the question is, can he develop the rest of the route tree?
That's right? Why I think he dropped. I agree.
And talking about Thornton?
Yes. Yeah. So the dude is a straight line track star where he can run at a clip that's just unreal for his height and size.
Especially size, yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable. But the problem is that he didn't, and if you look at his stats and whatnot, he never ran the 3-cone drill as part of the draft process. And so you never got to see what his kind of closer to in-game speed was on any of those kind of tests that you would typically run coming into the draft. And I think that probably is what dropped his draft stock a little bit, is that teams were left guessing, right? It's like, I hope he can, and, maybe if, and that sort of thing. And I think that kind of hurt his draft.
And that's when you have to go back and actually look at his footage, because if you go back to his Oregon days before the transfer portal, he was running all the different routes. But Tennessee runs a whole different weird offense, and that's all they had him do. So you're 100% correct. That was the total knock on him. Can he run the short route? Can he run the intermediate route? And we'll find out. I mean, but man, if he can pick that stuff up, it's going to be unbelievable with that kid. So
he's definitely seems like a really fun prospect for you guys.
I think he's going to be a fun player for sure.
I think he makes sense in the RPO game, especially with Geno, who can move around, right?
Yeah.
And just bombs away, right? To him, because you're not bombsing away to Brock or Jacoby. So that's like Trey Tucker would have been that guy if Thornton wasn't there. But since you got this guy with that speed and height, this is a dude that, third and long, we need something.
And that's 100% correct. I mean, you look at it last year, we talked about Tucker a lot because he was like the one fast, had good speed. But when you get a Thornton who's 4 inches taller, 4.5 inches, add another 20, 30 pounds and actually runs faster than Tucker.
Something kind of Richie said about the route tree. I think they might just be like, hey man, we're just going to have you run your college routes this year. Just run college routes this year. Maybe they might throw something at him or maybe throw a package or two, but they'll probably this year be like, hey, we're just going to use you what you were good at. And then they'll be like, this next offseason, we're going to have you kind of, they'll integrate it slowly knowing that they got 4 years with this kid. Could be. We'll see.
Very possible.
I think it'll be, I'm going to add 2 routes to your route tree. Do them really well.
Yeah.
And then they'll try to step him up like that. And that's what the Chiefs did with Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Hey, Raider Ryan. What's up, brother?
And that worked really well. And the other benefit that the Raiders have is they have a veteran head coach in Pete Carroll, who has got quite a bit of weight to throw around within the organization because he's done a lot of good in the league.
Yeah, I don't think anybody there is telling him what to do.
No, so he's like, no, I have a plan. Go kick rocks. And I think they're going to give him the rope to hang himself, so to speak, with a bunch of different players. And I think it will end up likely working out for the majority of them. There's always going to be mistakes.
Shift that culture, that Raider way, that Al Davis way that Mark kind of lost somehow. I think Pete's going to reinstill that in Las Vegas. And look, I'm not happy about it, but it's good for our division, and I think it makes us stronger.
Well, I also think it's good for the league overall.
Sure. The Raiders are
massive
sell. They're a massive sell. They have a huge brand. And I think it's going to do well, and it's a complete smart move for them to get Pete. Just like I think that the Chargers bringing Jim in there. After I think there are 3 rookie head coaches, which set my organization back. I believe, especially in LA, which is not a good place to do it.
You know what's kind of funny, since we started talking about head coaches, Pete Carroll went back on like a Seattle show that he would do when he was in Seattle. And he actually brought up Harbaugh. And, he said one of the things that he's really kind of looking forward to, because they're rivals, but they're friends. You know what I mean? So he's like, that's one of the things he said he's looking forward to is like, hey, I got to go against Harbaugh again.
Yeah, I think they didn't start out as friends, especially in when Pete was at USC and Jim was at Stanford. But I think eventually they became friends because even they had the owners' meetings earlier this year, not this last voting stuff. Pete and Jim were sitting next to each other, the whole time, chopping it up. So that's why I predicted. I was like, they're definitely going to have a primetime game between our 2 teams, especially with this coach rivalry stuff.
Yeah, so
I think so. One quick thing, real quick. So Ryan just posted that Sacktown's babysitter. So that's what I got under my thumbnail. Is that I went with that Raiders festival. I went with Sacktown, and he's a bit older. And he walks with a cane. He's got bad hips and stuff like that. So yes, I was kind of babysitting the whole time. And then one other really quick note is that Captain's coming in town this weekend with see Ed.
Oh, cool.
So I might get the opportunity to have dinner or something like that with those guys.
Nice, man.
Pona.
Tell Captain I said what's up.
So I'm gonna jump right into the Broncos stuff. We can keep this going along.
You're gonna do your 3 guys?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
So I believe I'm picking positions that I'm picking certain players in certain positions. So first things first, I'm going to go right off the number 1 position that I think is very much up for grabs. and that is the center position on the offensive line for the Denver Broncos.
Did not see that one coming.
Okay, so
Interesting.
the way I look at it is this: I think our guards are pretty much solidified, and I think that even if there's another dude rotating in, it'll be at the left guard position. You can barely hear me.
Yeah, I can hear him really well. Kona, what's going on? Get off
Kona.
Boost Mobile, Kona.
Yeah, Kona likes to do this on his show. So
Kona, number one, less booze and you'll hear better. Number two, there's a volume button on the laptop or the speakers that you have. Simply turn that up, and then I'll probably increase in volume, and we'll go from there.
He can hear us too, but not. Wow, that's weird, man. I'm sorry.
Look, no one's ever accused me of being quiet before in my life, so we just I'll take the win and move on. But so the way I look at it is on the offensive line for my Denver Broncos, we graded out really well, but as everyone knows, I was not a huge fan of the offensive line last year for my Denver Broncos. I felt that we did well, but we really started to struggle as the year went on. And I really had some major concerns entering into the 2025 this season. And so the issue that I have right now is just give me 1 sec, guys. I'm just gonna double check something.
Yeah, man.
Hey, LVR, good to see you at the event, bro. And on this kid right here, he's a young kid. He's got his own podcast. So yeah, it's like everyone go out and support him. Support Kona. Kona's on your same network with Richie. And
hey,
I heard
Kona, what about now?
Oh, that's loud.
That's way different.
Yeah.
What about now? Are we good?
Oh, it's louder for sure.
All right.
It's a whole different way of Richie I've never heard before.
Yeah. So we'll go with this. So the way I look at it, my offensive line is this. Is I was not a huge fan of how we played in the run game. And I was also not a huge fan of how we played against really good teams. So like the Buffalo Bills, the Ravens, like those like gritty style teams that are playoff teams, by the way. So like, it's not like I'm picking rando teams that are like, oh, who cares about them? No, like we're talking like the good teams, right? And so my concern here is that my Denver Broncos did pretty well against teams that were playoff bound but not elite. We did really well against teams that were not making the playoffs, but we got absolutely demolished by the really top tier teams that we ended up playing last year. And it almost always came down to the center position or the guard position on the left-hand side. So it was Powers on the left side of the line, and the center position, who just got demolished. He got absolutely destroyed. The center position is such a critical spot, as Alex, a former member of the show here, has told us on multiple occasions and agrees with me 100%. The quarterback of the offensive line is the offensive center. And if the center gets killed and or doesn't call the right protections or doesn't do the right thing, your offensive line is in deep doo-doo.
Story of my life.
And no, that's a big deal. Like, that's a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking ahead to what my Denver Broncos are looking up to this year. I think we brought in some adequate competition to perhaps challenge the guard spot there, to maybe have Powers, really earn that spot on the line. I think we have some great swing tackles that are going to really start to push, whether it be McGlinchey or just in general, to say, we got guys that are up that are potentially coming in to, sniff positions here. You got to play up to par. But ultimately, the offensive center position, and I have two guys, Clay Webb and Alex Forsyth. Alex Forsyth was Bo Nix's center from Oregon.
Yep.
And Clay Webb is the guy that I mentioned on the last two shows now, who
Was he UDFA?
He's a UDFA,
yeah.
But I told you, I said, I think he's making the 53. I really do. I really think the dude's making the 53-man roster, and I would not be surprised if once we start getting into, pads and that sort of thing, if we start seeing Clay Webb in that kind of like 1A, 1B role in terms of the center position. Because I really do believe that our coaching staff loves the way that this guy plays. And I think that we're wanting to get into a run, more running style to kind of really solidify the game. And I think Clay Webb can provide that to us. So I actually have Clay Webb as kind of the 1A and then Alex Forsyth as the 1B in that kind of spot. But ultimately, it's the offensive center position that I believe is going to be a breakout player for us this year because I think we're finally going to do something there. Number 2, inside linebacker Alex Singleton.
Why are you okay?
Well, kid got hurt, but he was on an all-pro level last year.
He was at an all-pro level last year, and he heard for the vast majority of the offseason and throughout the season last year that he was done.
What was his injury, by the way? Do you guys remember anybody?
I think it was a knee.
I don't remember.
I
was just happy he was off the field.
Yeah,
that guy was a beast.
Sorry, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I think it was an MCL. But he has made multiple comments that he is pretty pissed and he wants to come back. And I'm quite convinced that Alex Singleton's goal
ACL.
So I thought it was MCL, it's ACL. I'm pretty convinced that Alex Singleton's goal is, I think he wants comeback player of the year. I think he's wanting to play to that level.
He wants to take Joe Burrow's award.
Pretty much. Yeah. Like I think Alex Singleton is saying, like, I want my name to be remembered. And I think that his goal this year is to say,
he's a damn good linebacker, man.
Yeah, I'm going to come back and prove it. And he's my type of linebacker. He's a guy that plays with anticipation. He is not the most athletic, but he plays with intelligence. He plays by reading plays, figuring it out, etc., etc. And I really do believe that players like that have longevity in the NFL because they're not solely relying on their athleticism. They are relying on skill and learned skills at that, which is not something that you can just get kicked out of college and come and kill it at the NFL.
Now, Richie, real quick, have you seen Alex cleared for camp or anything yet?
Yeah,
he's been cleared.
He said that he's ready to go, has no issues, and he's going to be there for sure.
Oh, cool. Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. DZ, this is how good he is. Last year, Spillane, and all the Raider fans in here know it, Spillane was looking wonderful. He's kicking ass. And then I go look up the stats, and again, our teams play each other, and I'm like, wow, this fucking Singleton kid is looking phenomenal. And I go look up his stats, and they were better than Spillane's. And that blew me away. I'm like, because I'm like, man, Spillane should be, make, all pro this year. And then I see
Singleton.
Yeah. And then I saw Singleton stats and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. That's why I was kind of surprised he said that, but I guess since his injury, it makes sense,
No, remember, it's a breakout player. So the problem here is, this is my Broncos boot here, Kona. I announced earlier on the show that this is whiskey and Coke as my drink tonight. But
we're all getting lit.
This is why I picked Singleton. Is that he's first off, I'm on record. I think DZ, you were in the audience of the show at that point when we first signed Singleton with the Denver Broncos.
2 years ago? 2
years ago. And I basically called him out as one of the best signings. And everyone in the chat and the guests were like, oh, no. And he basically had one of the best seasons out of any linebacker the Broncos have had in 5-6 years. And then everyone finally said, oh, maybe he was a good signing. And it's well, yeah, he is the gritty style player that we were kind of talking about and referring to earlier in the show. He's the dude that's going to come in with his lunch pail in hand, be there, one of the first in the building and then one of the last to leave. He's going to be the dude that's going to, sleep with the playbook to make sure that he doesn't forget or miss anything. And he's going to be the guy that's going to be reviewing film day in, day out to ensure that he can always get better and always improve, because he's the guy that knows that he's got a limited window.
Do you see that? Have you seen his? So they call him a Canadian American, but he was born in California. I don't understand that.
He played in the CFL for the majority of his football career up in Alberta, Winnipeg,
Calgary or whatever,
Saskatchewan.
or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember him when he was on Philly.
He has been on record saying how much he loves the CFL. Like, he is still tweeting out on X.
It's a fast league. It's a fast league, man. Spread the hell out.
It is.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of motion.
Huge field, a lot of motion, a lot of stuff, and so he's used to that style of play. He's been on record saying how much he loves that style of play.
CFL to me is like European hockey compared to the NHL. It's a very spread out, fast game. Yeah.
I guess for DZ, the best way I can describe him, you look at your safety, you're all pro safety. And I when watching, the Broncos, there was two guys, everyone else is just a bunch of numbers to me for the most part. Mm-hmm. But he stood out. It's like, oh, this cat's good. Him and Surtain.
Yeah, Allen stands out for me on the Broncos, but yeah, I can see how you'd say Singleton. Allen, he stands out to me like a sore thumb, but in a good way. Like
Zach Allen, right?
Yep.
Zach Allen. Yeah.
Dude.
Whew. Yeah.
Love his play.
Yeah, and then now Zach Allen was a guy that I had potentially at number 3 because he had a bit of a breakout year last year, but then he kind of fell off as the year went on. Kind of like Nick Benito, he had a really good beginning to the season and kind of fell off near the end.
God.
But I'm going in a different direction. I actually think that you have a 1A, 1B at this one here, and I think it's going to be the Broncos wide receiver, and I think it's going to be Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant. I think
I got it other way. You got Pat. I think Pat, but Vele also.
So I do think Vele, but I have him as a C, like the third kind of potential there. And the reason why I have Pat Bryant is that Pat Bryant does kind of the dirty work that the wide receivers need to do in the Sean Payton offense. Yeah,
I like him.
Vele does the same thing. Vele's a little bit taller, but Pat Bryant has the Tim Patrick skill set. He's got the high point grab. He's got the body control. He's got the sideline end zone body control. He's got that style. He's got that kind of look and feel. Now, Vele had that again last year where he filled into that Tim Patrick role, dare I say, rather seamlessly. However, I think
like
Pat
he has
Bryant
way more to offer, Richie.
Pat Bryant is a sharper version of that, I think. I think he runs sharper, crisper routes. I think he's got better high point. I think he does the blocking really well, and I think that Pat Bryant can be a really interesting player. I think his straight line speed is not fantastic, but the wide receiver position is not all about straight line speed. It's about being a technician on the field. And in fact, that's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly the guy I was going to say. Keenan Allen was not the fast dude, but he always got open because he was a technician in terms of how he ran his routes.
Right.
And then Troy Franklin, I kind of have in that same vein, and it was a tough one for me to decide A versus B. And the reason why I have Troy Franklin in there as maybe even above or past Pat Bryant was this is his second year in the league in terms of Troy Franklin. He's got the baked-in chemistry, having been Bo Nix's kind of favorite weapon at Oregon. And then in addition to that, Troy Franklin would have had a much better year with the Denver Broncos if he hadn't dropped so many passes. He would have a huge year.
Can I say something? I got to say something real quick about that.
Yeah.
Was it Troy or was it Bo?
It was Troy.
Okay, because you do know Bo had an issue with his intermediate passes last season. And obviously, look, he was a rookie. That's fine. No big deal.
No, but Troyer was a deep throw guy. He was the guy that was going downfield. And Troy had multiple passes where it was 20, 30 yards. Like, he dropped a touchdown, like a wide open touchdown.
Oh, he's Quentin Johnson?
No, but it literally hit him right here, and the dude just dropped it.
Yeah.
And so imagine, plays like that, right? Where you have a dude that's like free, clear, wide open and misses like a breadbasket throw. It's like on the numbers, can't miss, like we're good, and he still messed it up.
Yeah.
And so there was more than one. There was at least 2 or 3 of those plays last year where he would have had at least probably 2 or 3 additional touchdowns, but he dropped the ball. And he would have had at minimum almost an extra 150 to 200 yards if he didn't drop the ball as well.
I am not going to pretend like I know what goes on in a wide receiver's brain, but I've found myself being very like, all right, it's mental, right? Because they've told us our whole lives, right? Football is like very mental, this and that, whatever. It's not that physical, but I think that's BS. It's still very physical. And I look at players. Hang on, Jack. I look at players like Quentin Johnson and Richie's talking about Troy Franklin dropping balls, and I'm like, it gets to a point where I'm like, WTF? Look, man, you are paid to catch the damn ball, man.
Yep.
It hits you in your effing hands, your chest. Catch the ball.
Well, and that was going to be my question to you guys, to both of you. This is a question to you. Do you feel like, again, we're talking about these drop passes that are hitting your hands. Do you feel like in reality that you can teach that? I mean, I think it's like, it's one of those things I feel like either you kind of got it or you don't.
No, I think you end up with 2 things, and Troy got better as the year went on, and that's why I believe that this is a year where he could really excel, because he's got the speed. Like, he can get himself open.
He's got great traits, man.
Yeah, he's got the things that you need to do well in the league.
Yeah.
I think the problem that Troy had was he was trying to run with the ball before he had caught it. And that's all mental. That's not physical. That is 100% up in your head. And as the year went on, he was finally doing the thing. The other thing that some of these wideouts have is the mental aspect. And this isn't meant to be like a knock on people individually, but some of these wide receivers struggle with the route tree. And what I mean by that is there's a long route tree that they are meant to run on these various plays. And so it's like, depending on the play call, they're meant to do either A or B. And a lot of these wideouts are having to constantly think about what they're trying to do at any given moment. Well, until it becomes automatic for them, where they just know if this, then this, if that, then this, and it's like a split second for them, like not even having to think about it. If they're having to constantly say, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. Well, you're basically doomed to fail at that point, because you're so much in your head trying to remember what you need to do and how you need to do it that you're probably going to mess it up. And then when the ball's thrown in the air, you're like, okay, I got to get it. And then you're done.
Or,
like,
hey, say it's a crucial down, right? Like, wide open touchdown catch.
Right.
Oh, God damn, drop.
Right. Trying to run with the ball before you actually have the ball, that kind of stuff, right?
A little bit of alligator arms.
Right. And so the whole point is you gotta get to a point where the game becomes more automatic for you, where it just becomes a second nature thing for you. And I think that's where Franklin's going to come in this year. I really do think he's going to take that next step. And I think Pat Bryant has the mentality. Jacoby Myers is a great example, actually, Gord.
Yeah. Gord came in late, but we were talking about Jacoby earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. I think he's got a really interesting skill set, Jacoby, right? He's typically been a very reliable wide receiver. He's typically had great stats, and he certainly knows all the different layers of the route tree. Now, some guys struggle with drops just because that's kind of their shtick. That's their issue. They can do all the things, but they still just can't catch the ball. And that's what you're talking about, right? Which is, at some point you're paid to catch the ball. So you either you do the thing or you get gone.
Or
right?
you don't have an idiot GM who drafts a guy super high because he was a body catcher in college, and then they try to make him a deep threat, which never works. And that's my team. That's Quentin Johnson, and he's great with intermediate stuff, but his whole thing was body catching, and that just doesn't fly in the NFL. You've got to catch the damn ball with two hands, and it's just Anyways, that's another story, and
I completely agree. And so I have probably Troy Franklin as the number 1, and then Pat Bryant as like a very close number 2 as a breakout player.
So this is going to be contract year for Sutton, though, right?
Yes.
Expect big things, man.
No.
And Gord, you're 100% right, bro.
He's playing for next year, in my opinion. He
is, but the problem is that this is what I was talking about earlier in the show. The Denver Broncos, as it stands right now today, they have brought in a bunch of other dudes as well that are all going to start to be like log jamming that whole wide receiver room, that are similarly sized, that have great speed, typically have caught the ball well in their college careers. And the preseason, I think, is going to open up a lot of eyes for some of these guys that were UDFAs and even kind of later round draft picks. Also, keep in mind that the Broncos brought in a wide receiver. Let's also keep in mind that the Broncos brought in a wide receiver as one of the tryout players, as yet another wideout that they signed and cut another player to have him compete for a job as well. The Broncos are log jamming that wide receiver room. And that's what I'm saying is it could even be where the Broncos are going to look to try to trade Sutton before the season starts, in my opinion.
Wow.
I truly think that could be one of the plays that the Broncos have here, which is,
he's a valuable asset, in my opinion, man.
He's a valuable asset, but the problem is that if you have Troy Franklin, you drafted Pat Bryant, right? You have Marvin Mims already, who's your gadget guy. You got Vele, who showed that he can be a very reliable wide receiver.
Right.
And then you add on to that the other 2 or 3 guys that are all competing for that role. It could just be where you look at Sutton as a guy that you don't need in the long term, and that he could potentially lend you some draft capital, and you could do just as well by having other guys fill that spot. And that's no knock against Courtland Sutton. I really do like him as a player.
Decision.
It's a business choice. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And, and it's a premium position too. We just talked about earlier on the show, like wide receivers cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And if you can get the same production or close to it and not have to pay that big payday, where you can use anywhere else.
Yeah. And keep in mind that my Denver Broncos have some very large contracts coming up on the defensive side of the ball. We have Nick Benito, who's going to need a contract if we want to keep him. We have some choices and decisions to make about John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen on the defensive end position and defensive tackle position. And then we also have openings on the defensive line that may or may not need to be filled in either this season and certainly next season. And so those are big dollar positions. Defensive ends and defensive tackles that are good or elite. Those are very, very high price tag positions. And so it's quite possible that the Denver Broncos could be simply looking at Courtland Sutton and saying, look, we like you a lot, but we're not going to want to spend 30 mil or even 25 mil on a wideout. We're going to need to do that on the defensive side of the ball. So let's get production from younger wideouts and let's move on and do that.
Yeah, man.
So that's my.
It makes sense. I mean, it does. Especially since he does get injured every now and then. So that's a lot of money to spend at that type of position for sure.
Yeah. So those are my kind of 3 stacked positions.
I was surprised by the center one.
I picked Singleton simply because I have heard many things to say that he is just absolutely just on fire to get back on the field, and that surprises me not even a little bit. And then the center position, I just think that's such a critical spot for my Denver Broncos with a sophomore quarterback. I just think it's a massive thing. You need and want that Jeff Saturday Peyton Manning relationship. You want that guy that can be at the center position commanding the offensive line from now until goodness knows when, because it is such a critical position, and you want that almost
We had Corey
telepathic.
Linsley for like 1.5 seasons.
Yeah,
And then
but
his
he
part,
okay. So let's look at how that looked for your team.
amazing.
Okay, the dude was elite, right?
Yep.
Like he was elite, and then he went away, and your team was in shambles once he was gone,
Bingo.
right? So, like,
fucking go.
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, it is so.
It
many
was no
people,
fault of his. He had a heart condition, poor guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
sucked.
And you guys mentioned the center
make me
position.
upset.
I read something today that Zion was actually taking snaps at center.
Yeah. It's just for funs. It's funsies.
Okay.
It's funsies. It's all just like Matthew Megan. It's fugazi. It's like, let's just see if he can do it. Cool. Look, he's in his contract year right now, Zion, and listen, he's got to ball out, man, or he's not going to be making much his next contract. But look, he's a first round pick, so it's going to warrant something next year. But we need this guy to be better than he's played these last 3 years. Let's just say that. And
and sorry, just to jump in, just to close off the Broncos, and we'll just go right over to you.
sure.
The center position is such a critical one on the offensive line. The Broncos have their quarterback of the future. He's on a rookie deal. Solidifying that quarterback that's on the offensive line should be seen as a priority in my mind, and that's another reason why I believe that that's going to be an open competition for my Denver Broncos. And I think that Alex Forsyth, Clay Webb, based on comments that were coming out of the locker room, including from the head coach, by the way, who came out and just raved about Clay from the rookie mini camp there. I really do think that that's going to be a low key but big time, improvement for my Denver Broncos.
You're gonna have me look into Clay Webb. I'm gonna do that. You got me intrigued.
Over to you, and let's talk Chargers.
Yeah, man. So I have 3 breakout candidates, and none of them are rookies because I don't think I'm gonna put any rookies in the breakout. I think it's tough being a rookie as it is. So I'll just name off all 3. My first guy is Najee Harris. I think he's going to breakout candidate. People be like, what? How's that a breakout, right? And then I've got Justin Boygby, who is our 4th round pick. And then I've got Junior Colson, our 3rd round pick from last season. So let me jump in why I think Najee might be a breakout. Because the Chargers did draft Omarion Hampton, and everybody's thinking, oh, you got this rookie coming in. I think the Chargers are going to, run a split backfield or multi-backfield. They're going to have a running back by committee. But Greg Roman likes to play the hot hand, so this is where I see this coming to play. When the Chargers signed Najee, they signed him, to a 1-year deal. So he's essentially playing in a contract. He's playing for his future again. And this guy came into LA with a chip on his shoulder. He did not have the nicest things to say about his tenure in Pittsburgh. This was a guy who was a TED there every day. He averaged 1,000 yards for the last 4 seasons. Wasn't efficient, man. He was only a 3.9 yard per average kind of guy. But the way he talked, he's like, hey, our offense in Pittsburgh never had an identity. He came in, he was like, man, I felt like I could have done more. I felt like they could have had me used in different ways. I could have bounced some stuff to the outside. I could catch the ball, things like this. And they signed him, right? And then his guy's at home, and they're like, did you see the Chargers just drafted, number 22 or whatever it was? They just drafted a running back. They just drafted Omarion Hampton. So I'm sorry, this guy is like already pissed of how he thought he was in the future in Pittsburgh. And they pretty much said, see us, bye, thanks for your tenure. Thanks for being healthy every game for the last 4 years and putting up 1,000 yards. Yeah, albeit it wasn't sexy. This is a This is a dude, 6'1", 232 pounds. And played at Alabama, man. He was a first rounder. So I got a feeling that this guy is pissed off. He wants to prove a up-and-coming star running back that he is better still, and he wants to carry the load. And I think this guy, he kind of hinted. He's like, look, man, I can bounce stuff out. I don't need to be rushed up the middle. That's what they had me do in Pittsburgh. I don't necessarily need to do that. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see Najee. He's my breakout candidate, one of them. And let's see. And I'm excited to see this guy. I'm excited to see him in this game, especially knowing that they've got some good guys to give him a breather.
Yeah, I wasn't happy when you guys signed him. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And if you're averaging 3.9 yards, if you can get, again, think it. We've talked about this on previous shows too. If you get 4 yards in a run, it changes everything on your second down.
Yeah.
You always get a first. You're always going to be turning the sticks if you're getting 4 yards a carry.
Yeah. I mean, look, none of these guys have. This guy's just got this. He does those long runs. None of these guys right now in the Chargers really are breakout long running guys. They're not this RG Harvey, or they're not a Genty who can just take one to the house. These guys are more ground and pound, just wear you kind of down, big dudes, right? But I think he's got a little bit more to show than he did in Pittsburgh. And I think that he feels slighted, and he thought he would be a career Steeler. That just wasn't the thing. And look, they paid him $9.5 million this year. They're going to get their money's worth out of him. Let's just say that. My second guy, this goes to the defensive side, is our 4th-round pick, who I was intrigued by, but the fan base was boggled why he was picked. It was Justin Boyd out of Alabama. He played, I think I've talked about this previous shows. He was a traditional D end, and he was hampered by a neck injury at Alabama. And this guy just had elite traits, like body-wise, and he's got that super quick first step. He's a gap guy, but he doesn't have that, that second end speed or that, that finishing move that some of these other guys that we've talked about previously. But, last season, they did get him into some games, but it was none. But it was like nothing. It was non-existent. And the reason I'm saying is being a breakaway, it's because his name's been mentioned. We've had beat reporters ask about Justin, ask him, because last year when they drafted him, our GM came out and said, hey, Justin's going to be a developmental player. And pretty much saying, we took this guy, we're going to build him. This offseason, apparently he has gained 20 pounds. And I believe that puts him to, he was 292, so add 20 to 292, right?
312.
So, yep, 312.
Big boy.
Yeah. And he's slated to be pushed inside. So, the way the Chargers defense runs, there'll be 2 outside linebackers and then nose tackle, 2 T tackles. So he'll be in a D tackle position. And I've got now when I say breakout, I think that he's going to be a factor. I don't think he's going to be a star. Let's just say that, if that makes any sense to you guys.
It does.
I think he's gonna be a factor. I think he was dealing with stuff. I mean, a neck for a dude his size. I think he's 6'4", 6'6". Let me see if I see what his he's 6'4". They said he put on some really good, like the 20 pounds he put on was good 20 pounds. Jim Harbaugh came out, talked about him. So did his D-line coach. So, there's been 4 or 5 guys talking about this guy. And I think he's going to have there was a guy on our team last year, Morgan Fox. They would run him out there, NASCAR packages. I think this guy takes Morgan Fox's role over and is a factor. He's long arms, bat balls, do all that, run stuffer, create that havoc on the interior so your edges can hit home runs. But his film, Georgia, I mean, not Georgia, sorry. Ooh, Red Tide, Roll Tide, whatever the hell. Anyways, there was some decent stuff. I saw his motor. He's just a massive human. He's not anything great, but I think he's got potential to break out and be a factor in this rotation. But we'll see. And then, last but not least, my favorite guy from the draft last season was our third-round pick, Junior Colson, out of Michigan. Now, this guy was the QB of that defense. And then that, if you guys don't know, Michigan's defensive coordinator is now the Chargers' defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter. And everybody was like, holy this is a home run hit. This guy's going to come in right away. He's going to be the quarterback of the defense. He's going to do it all. Wrong. This guy was hampered from right at the get-go, right as we were going into preseason, and had to get an appendectomy. Had, missed time. I think it was, I don't know how many weeks or days that they kind of babied it because he couldn't get in and get those valuable reps, especially as a rookie coming in. You don't have, camps. You don't get that, it's tougher for you to get in and get everything under your belt. To say vets already have it from previous seasons. This guy came in and he played 11 games, but he only started one game. And but this is a guy who had not elite, but had extremely good stats in college. I mean, I think in 2022 he didn't allow any touchdowns in coverage as a linebacker, which is, they went on a championship run.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he is 6'1", 232 pounds. No, not wrong. Sorry, guys. That is not his stats. That was our running back, not a linebacker. But this guy, which is crazy because last year it was Jack's boy, Joel, and then Ladd McConkey, first, second. And believe it or not, Junior was my favorite pick because how desperately we needed a linebacker, that presence at middle linebacker. And unfortunately, he didn't pan out. But I think this year, just like it kind of sucks to say this because Deion Henley, our other linebacker, blossomed his sophomore year. He wasn't played his rookie year, and that had to do with the head coach. That had to do with Staley, and we all know Staley. Staley didn't value linebackers, to be honest with you guys. And he felt slighted. And then this year, this previous season, he was an absolute terror. But Junior, 6'3", 247 pounds, thumper as a middle linebacker. He's a TED guy, too. He is a there every day kind of type of guy. Played through hand injuries, had a cast on for the majority of one of his seasons. He won the Lott Trophy in 2023, two-time All-Big Ten, freshman All-American. He was a national champ, as everybody knows. But, I think he had a, welcome to the league rookie season last year. So I think this year, coming into camp healthy, especially with the trainers, Ben Herbert over there in LA, I think this is my breakout. And we need him to break out because, they brought back Perryman. Kenna knows him well. He was there for a season. And I love Denzel. He's been cleared to play. He had an elbow injury last season. He had surgery in the off season. But Junior's our future. That's good because we have.
Yeah, how old is Perryman now? Shoot, I thought he was kind of old when he left your team to come to my team and then played out his contract and then went back to your team. So I can
He's
see
old.
definitely the future because he is definitely getting up there. But
He's
he's
old and
stout
he
on the run.
admits it. He admits that, hey, look, I'm going to get injured because of the play style. He goes, he pretty much said he just had a
Ball to the wall.
presser. He said, look, I play linebacker a certain way and I get injured. It happens. He just said, that's what I do. So I think you like that, but you at the same time you need guys to fill in why these guys, tend to their boo-boos, right? So, but this is our future, and I've got faith in him. He's a smart kid. He's got a great story. He was born in Haiti, so he was adopted to a family in the States and raised like he's a really good kid, really smart guy. He just had a really bad start as a rookie and didn't get to shine. But those are my 3 breakouts for the Chargers: is Najee, Justin Boygby, and then Junior Colson. And Justin is more of, I don't think he's going to be anything great, but I think he can be, a factor. I think he can be a good rotational piece. He's got the size. He came from a great division. He was played under Saban before Saban went away. So, those boys that played in Alabama were good. But, yeah, I didn't put any rookies because I just didn't. I don't know. I could go on about these rookies, but it's all, like.
One never knows because they haven't played a snap yet.
Yeah.
I got a different question. Do you know, since, for a Chargers fan who comes in all the Raider shows, and he's kind of been the talk of the Raider side of like, comes in, he's a Chargers fan. His name is Piano Man. Have you ever come across him at any of your Charger chats?
Somebody in this chat just said something like that, but I haven't been in any Raiders things for some weeks now. So
no, but he's a Chargers fan. I think that's why it got brought up because I told him actually to come on to this show to support you. So that was what kind of curious if you've ever come across that guy or not.
No, I've never seen him. No,
dude, I blocked him like 5 times already.
Is he a dickhead?
Well, he likes to talk. Yeah, see, Weber knows. Hey, Weber, what's up, brother?
I don't know, man. Like, I have a hard time when there's like fans that just run their mouths because it's like, why, dude? Like,
right?
Back it up, or let's keep it friendly banter. But if you're just gonna run your mouth and talk and say F that team or F this team, like, you're not bringing anything to the conversation. So,
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I have no interest in that nonsense, and I generally like to shut down that kind of nonsense from Broncos fans too. I'm all for
what we're doing.
Jabbing at your opponent and kind of saying, "Oh yeah, well you haven't done anything lately," and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's all fair game.
When the season starts, like say it's like Broncos versus Chargers coming up, like fans want to say, we're gonna. That's cool. That's fine. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Of course.
Yeah. And my only thing with that is, let's make sure you bring that same energy if you get whomped. Right?
Come back the next week, dude.
Yeah.
Come back next week.
Yeah, and let's actually have that discussion, right?
Be a man.
I got to give you this, man. I got to give you your cred. That is one of the things I love about your show because we all have different teams. We don't like each other's teams for the most part.
Like you guys,
we're rivals, but you know what? There's something to be said to have like an intelligent conversation, and not just say stuff that's degrading and you got nothing to back it up with.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree.
Yep.
That's what attracted me to the show.
Yeah.
So, sorry, DZ, I actually have just one question.
Sure.
You didn't have any rookies on that list.
No. I think if I want to talk about the rookies, but for breakouts, like, look, it would have been easy.
I have one for you, which I think is going to be you gotta think. You guys tried to spoon feed and force feed, if you will,
Lad?
Quinn Johnson. Quinn Johnson.
Oh, Lad. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. QJ,
No,
yeah.
no. Like you tried to force feed Quinn Johnson when you brought him in, and he basically let you down big time, right? Like he did not live up to, he was not like as advertised, right?
He had one game against my buddy Jack's team, whatever, down there somewhere, where he put
Yes.
up like 200 some odd yards.
Sure, but the point though is that hasn't been the norm. So you now bring in Trey.
Yep.
And you have to imagine that he's going to be the guy that you're going to probably push the ball to a fair amount, I think is fair. No?
Timeout. No. So you got to remember, they brought back Justin's old buddy, Mike Williams. And people say, oh, but old Mike, right? Trey is going to be doing the same stuff Mike does, right? Trey is going to be that prototypical X. And Mike is coming in, which horrible statistic year last year. He was on the Steelers and the Jets, but he was healthy for 18 games, right? That's unheard of for him. This guy, coming into the camp healthy, going to be that X receiver. Trey runs the same stuff that Mike is. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity for Trey Harris to be like, oh, let me watch how this guy does it, but let me not get hurt when I land on the ground kind of thing. Like, let's not land on the ground, because Mike still, in my opinion, and look, you guys can disagree, is one of the best jump ball receivers in the league right now. He just has a bad history with injuries. So I think they'll use him at the same way. Maybe they'll be like, Trey, do something different. But look, Richie, I love where you're going with this, because Trey's got a lot of people excited. And I think Trey could have been drafted in the first round, but he wasn't. And
yes,
I think he's a hell of a prospect, and he's going to be a future pairing with Ladd. It's going to be Trey and Ladd kind of thing, and then whoever else can round out.
So my prediction is this. I think your team is going to force feed Trey to get him up to speed in the NFL. And then if he balls out like Ladd did, which, let's be honest, he had one heck of his. Well, that's my prediction. And I think what you're going to see is Mike Williams, he's going to be used as kind of what you did with Keenan Allen in his last year there, where Mike Williams, I think, is going to be like the safety blanket, bring in critical situations to kind of show everyone how it's done, if that kind of makes sense. Like I don't think that they're going to use him like they did before. I think they want him to be the guy to kind of teach the young bucks the things that they're still missing as like another coach on the field, and then let him exit stage left with maybe a little bit more respect on his name than he had when he originally left the Chargers organization. That's my general thought. That's my thought process.
Couldn't have said it any better, man. And believe it or not, man, one of the best statistical runs that Mike had with the Chargers was playing these intermediate routes, almost kind of like a Z. He was kind of almost running the Z pattern stuff. This was with, I think Lombardi was our OC at the time, but they're running Z with QJ. And I think the staff likes QJ just because he's a good guy. And I think they really see something in him. He's another first-round talent. I think they want to try to see if they can get something out of him. And he does do pretty decently as a Z. Just can't use him as an X. Can't use him deep. That's not his game. It's never been his game. Maybe if he did it, showed some at TCU, fine. But that's different. This is NFL. This is where the elite play, right? Like, this isn't bullshit. So we'll see.
You can't
what
do
happens.
body catches in the NFL level.
No,
you can't do that kind of stuff. You get demolished. You get absolutely demolished.
But the problem with QJ is tier, man. I think there's something going on, and I said it in another show. I really hope that he's seen a sports psychologist, and that's not a that's because I think he is an awesome kid. This QJ's, both his parents are military parents. He was raised in a military household. He's a very smart kid, very nice, humble guy. And I feel horrible for him when he drops these balls, when he lets his team down. But look, we said it earlier, Richie, you are paid to catch the effing ball, man, no matter
What's
what.
up, Jeff?
So,
Luke, brother.
my fandom kind of, I got to split my fandom and my, like, being a nice guy. And I'm like, all right, dude, there's already been 3 years of this shit.
I'll give you a Broncos comparison, and I think we're probably on the same page here. I hated Justin Simmons' play on the field largely.
Okay.
Hated it.
Okay.
Hated it. I thought he had a bunch of interceptions that were great. Don't get me wrong. And just like you said, QJ had a couple games. You're like, whoa. So it kind of, reminds me of kind of a
like,
very
hey,
similar.
it's there. It's there.
Yeah. Like, you can do the thing. I know you can do the thing. Look, right? And then on the flip side, though, the dude is an absolute just like, he's the guy that you'd want your daughter to date. Like you know what I mean? Like, in terms of character wise, like, he's that guy. He's the dude you'd be like, high character, humble, the made of the right stuff, that kind of stuff. Like,
it's like the guy you
guy.
want him to succeed. It just, it's not
there.
there.
And Justin Simmons very much reminded me of that. He was a pillar in the community. He did all sorts of charity work. He did a bunch of things that no one ever knew he did. I knew of a bunch of stuff that Simmons did through contacts that I have within Broncos country that are in kind of like the behind the scenes stuff of football that I knew Justin did. I felt bad that I kept on slamming him live on air. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But the point is,
Simmons on air.
Right. But the
You're
point
just
is
reminding me of a player, by the way. But go ahead, keep going.
Right, but the point is super simple. You have to do more than just one thing every once in a while to be whoa. And that was the problem that I had with Simmons, is that he would take bad angles in the run game. He would whiff on tackles all the time. He would make business decisions in certain elements of the game, and he would get beaten over the top. It was all making it look like effort was put in, even though you could tell that it really wasn't when you kind of saw what he was doing. And QJ, I don't think, is in that realm. I think QJ is legitimately putting the effort in and trying to do the thing. I think he's just making mistakes. And so I think that's where the difference is.
Look, I think we have two guys. I think we have two guys currently rostered on the Los Angeles Chargers, both first-round picks. Zion Johnson, left guard, center, whatever, left guard, and Quentin Johnson, wide receiver, that both have something going on up here. And Zion is extremely smart. Boston College computer science major or whatever the hell he is. But it's like you had me as like a dude and like loving humans. It's like, yeah, man. But then me as a fan, knowing my team hasn't won an effing playoff game in God, I don't know, since 18 or whatever, hasn't ever won a Super Bowl. I'm getting to a point where I don't effing care anymore, man. Do your job or go somewhere else. Get the hell out. You got a few years, and then it's like, this is the year. You put up or shut up. And if he does this first couple weeks, look, our season opens up. Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos. Like, holy hell. First time since any team has done that since 88.
Yeah.
Like, that is gnarly. Like,
so I got a question for you, DZ, on that note. So you're talking about the gauntlet that you start the season with.
Like,
no doubt.
Holy hell. Those are two. Those count as two.
Yeah.
Right.
Like no doubt that is a gauntlet, and that is wicked, like brutal, right? Okay, cool. Totally agree with you. However, unpopular opinion probably to say within your fan base, but I do think it's an important one to ask. At what point do you start saying maybe Justin doesn't have the stuff?
Oh shit, I'm not ready to do that, dude. I'm not ready to do that. Look,
let's be real. Let's be real. at some point, your quarterback, especially when they're making the kind of money that Justin is, has to be the reason, right?
Look, a lot of
Like
quarterbacks
we
in this
can at
league,
least agree on that, right?
luckily he's not. I don't think he's top 10 anymore in pay. But a lot of what these teams do is they pay for trades. So all these QBs are getting paid for trades. Brock Purdy, he's not worth $53 million a year. Are you kidding me? Come on. But what these teams are doing, they're like, they know league-wide quarterback play sucks balls right now. It is dog crap compared to the genre we grew up in with Elway, with
Peyton Manning,
Phillip
Tom
Rivers,
Brady,
Ben
Phil Rizzo.
Roethlisberger.
Yep.
That was, in my opinion, that was the golden age of quarterback play. And there was great guys before that, obviously, Dan Marino, the whole nine. But so we as fans can say he's overpaid. He's a bum. Dak Prescott, he's like the number one guy on everybody's hit list. Overpaid, blah blah blah. Right? I know as a Chargers fan what Justin has had to deal with. Who he's had on his team, who he's had as OCs, head coaches, O-line, wide receivers. I know all this. Has he been perfect? Hell no.
Well,
Has he
okay.
gone to hang on, Jack. Has he gotten us there? Yes. This guy has put this effing team on his back so many times, and he gets slandered because it's fun to do. It's hard to compare him to Jalen Hurts on Philadelphia, who's got an elite GM, and they just somehow do some fucking black magic wizardry and get all of Georgia and Alabama to get on their team. Kansas City, Mahomes hasn't played at an MVP level in like 3 seasons. Let's be real. But they have a damn good GM. They have a damn good head coach, and he's had a foundation there. Justin hasn't had a foundation, and it sucks because he keeps getting compared. Look, why does he keep getting compared? He gets compared to since Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has his college wide receiver elite. Jamar Chase is elite. But get this. Joe Burrow has won comeback player of the year twice. Why? Because he's fucking gotten hurt. He's been sacked a million times, and he's missed so many games. Justin doesn't miss games. He's missed like one game in his career or whatever.
No one is actually arguing that Justin Herbert isn't like an Iron Man.
He pissed me off. Richie, he pissed me off that Houston game because he did shit out of character. He did shit because guess what? He saw the game wasn't going anywhere near where they did, and he started making dumbass throws. And credit to Houston. If any Houston fan ever sees this, credit to your team because guess what? They found our weakness. They smelled blood in the water, and they attacked it every fucking play, and they were amazing at it. Guess what they did? They're like, we can't cover Ladd. Let him do this because he's their only weapon. Our run game was dog crap last season. You know what I mean? It was crap. We were 27th in points or whatever it was. So good. But look, does he have it? There is a part of me, there's this much that says there's a chance he might not have it. But you know what? Put some dudes around this guy, which hopefully that's what they did this season. And they talked about it. We let him down. Because guess what, Richie and Jack? They brought in all these guys last season. Yes, they didn't spend big, but they brought in like DJ Chark and all these other Muppets, and they didn't do crap. Guess what? His second best receiver was Will Dissly. Will Dissly is known for being one of the best blocking tight ends, and all of a sudden, Will Dissly is supposed to be some Travis Kelce out there. So look, Richie. Yes, he pissed me off, and I was really soured with Justin in that performance because it embarrassed me as a fan because I love the guy. I think he's an elite talent, but he just was put in the wrong situation. I hope he can have a Peyton Manning-esque kind of climb to his career.
My point is my point is exactly what you were saying though, which is at some point he needs to do the thing. At some point he needs to
he needs to win
playoff game, man.
He needs to elevate over the fray. He needs to push past the thing. He needs to basically do what Purdy did effectively
Dude, it
with the
hurts me in
Niners.
my soul. It hurts me in my
No, but
soul.
you understand what I'm saying, though, right? Like, I'm not even saying that he's a bad QB. I actually think that he's a great QB. He needs to do. Geno Smith, for example, has shown that next level, that next gear.
It took Gino a decade, by the way. It took
And
Gino a decade.
I agree. Some dudes just take longer to get there. But the difference is Gino didn't then level up and get the massive contract. He kind of did it like gradually. You know what I mean?
There we go. This is where me and you understand what I was just talking about. They are paying quarterbacks for their traits, man.
Yeah.
Look, we as fans have nothing to do with it. These GMs, these owners are like, they're like, I see it. We're paying it because guess what? Quarterbacks don't grow on trees. Like, look at all these other teams. If you don't have a quarterback, you're screwed in this league, man. You are absolutely screwed.
Yeah.
Like,
and
that's
and
why
actually on that note,
go ahead.
and on that note, just to kind of jump off of that, that's exactly why I was saying at the beginning of the show that too many folks are sleeping on the Raiders this year, because Geno Smith is no slouch. He is a way better quarterback than we are used to seeing on the Las Vegas Raiders.
5 seconds on Geno, Richie.
Yeah.
Is Geno doesn't need to play on an elite O-line. He can come out, he can run his RPO game, he's got the legs to do it, and he's got a really good, accurate arm. And we know the Raiders don't have anything close to an elite O-line, but they were going to have better weapons this year, and they're going to have a better running game.
Yep.
So if anybody's sleeping on the Raiders, you're a moron.
You're a moron. You're a moron. You're a moron. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I've been on that page for a while now, since I've seen that.
Somebody's going to take down the Chiefs, Rich. Somebody's got to do it. I'm not saying the Raiders are going to do it. I'm not saying the Broncos. I'm not saying the Chargers. One of us has got to do it, and it's going to happen sooner than later, in my opinion. It's going to happen, and it could happen this year.
I agree, and I do also agree with your assessment that Mahomes has played well enough to do well enough, but ultimately has not actually played at that MVP level. And at some point, that will kind of come back to bite them. Is it this year? Who knows? But certainly at one point and at some point, we are going to see Mahomes come back down to earth based on his level of play and what he's done. So I really think that it's going to be an interesting season this year.
This is probably going to be one of the most exciting seasons in a while.
I agree. And I think that all of our teams have done things to improve themselves. And I think that both our drafts and the offseason moves, they're not super splashy, but they're incredibly key and important moves that each of our teams has made to elevate and improve our teams.
They're stacking.
Yeah, it's a brick stack moment. And that's what you get when you have seasoned general managers or good general managers, as well as veteran head coaches that can help steer the process. But we are definitely backing up on time here, so we're going to go ahead and end the show right then and there. Next week, we're going to be jumping into OTAs, talking about what we're seeing on the field, some things that we hear out of all of our teams, and we are going to be working on getting a Chiefs rep on the show to have the other side, or the fourth side, if you will, of the coin on the show as well. Violator. Great dude. One of the three-member team there of Ref Guru's show there over on Ref's channel, as well as Captain Jack.
That guy's been a bane in my childhood, man. I've known this guy since I was a kid.
Yeah, he is a staple at all the different Raiders games. Great guy. Wrote a book actually about his life, which I have downstairs. I got a signed copy from Violator. Great to see you on the show here, Violator, and thank you for making an appearance. But next week, we're going to be back, OTAs, talking about all of our teams, what we saw, what we liked, what we didn't like. and all that sort of stuff.
And hopefully Jack can charge his phone next time. Jack,
Yeah,
love you, buddy.
I blame that on the iPhone, which I don't like. But anyways, guys, until next week, where the West Side's the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work